Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this algorithm webinar on integrated budgeting, reporting, forecasting, and consolidation for Exact Macola. I'm Jeff Jenkins from Algorithm, and I want to just make sure that we're setting the parameters for our discussion today. Obviously, accounting data in the form of financial statements and dashboards and reports are geared towards understanding where your company currently stands, but where your organization is headed, the forward planning cycle for your company. Those are the topics or the kinds of topics that we're going to be discussing here today. We are welcoming Chris Porter from Prophix. Algorithm is a partner with Prophix, and Chris is joining us as an expert and giving us an overview of how you can use Prophix for the automation of critical financial processes, including, as I mentioned earlier, budgeting, forecasting, planning, reporting, consolidation, and so forth. Obviously, this is a detailed type of topic, so what we're going to do is we're going to have the phone lines muted during the actual presentation. Anyone that has a question, though, however, can submit those questions at any point during the presentation, either using the Q&A or the chat functions within the WebEx. And then we're going to open up the phone lines at the end of the presentation for a Q&A period, and then also if there have been questions that have been submitted during the presentation, I'll make sure that we get those before Chris so that they can be addressed. We are recording today's presentation so that the recording will be made available on our website and through YouTube. So if there's something that is covered or discussed during this presentation that you'd like to go back and revisit, the recording will be made available. And if you'd like to contact somebody at Algorithm, your account manager or perhaps a consultant that you work with, you can request that we will send you a link to that recording, and we'll get that out to you as soon as it's available. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Chris Porter from Prophix and turn things over to him so that we can get started with the presentation. Chris, it's all yours.
And thank you, everybody, for taking the time on your afternoon here on Tuesday to meet with Algorithm and meet with myself, Chris Porter from Prophix. Our agenda is going to be pretty straight to the point. We'll give you a very brief overview of who is Prophix, both as a solution but also as a company. And then we'll jump really right into the demonstration. So we'll be doing a live demonstration of Prophix against Exact Macola. Prophix has been in business since 1987. We're a Toronto-based company with offices all over the United States and Canada, but also in Europe, in London, Denmark, and Brazil. We service a little over 2,600 customers in 94 countries across all industries. So Prophix is ultimately a configured solution to meet your business needs and to meet the way your business operates. Solution and as a company is growing at a very rapid pace. And it's not just the solution awards that we're receiving as a company that's growing at a rapid pace, but also a company that regularly receives awards from industry analysts such as Business Finance and British Accountancy, which are truly testaments to the software itself and how it's used, how it's developed, and the feedback that our customers give. As Jeff talked about, is more than just budgeting and reporting. It's a solution that offers a full gamut of CPM or corporate performance management capabilities and functionality. Oftentimes customers will start off looking at their financial reporting and their financial budgeting, so focusing on their P&L, their balance sheet, and their cash flow. Over time, as new requirements within their business arise, data sets within their Exact Macola or other solutions as well. As those things arise, customers can easily execute on those requirements and execute on the vision that they have for Prophix without the looming cost of modules or subscriptions. Prophix is a full, unified, and secure CPM solution that allows you to grow with the solution as your business requirements become more sophisticated, but also as your business grows. And as I said, you take on new data sets, you take on new ways of planning and reporting. Prophix customers truly grow with the solution, and they grow as their business grows. key benefits of Prophix as a solution are not just the automation of your reporting from your Macola database all the way through to the end result, but ultimately the ability to accurately and very controlled planning and forecasting that goes with it. What we're ultimately doing here at Prophix in conjunction with Algorithm is extending the value of the data that's in your exact Macola data. Ultimately getting you it quicker, but also with leveraging the tools that Prophix has built to do forecasting and planning, such that you're ultimately more integrated in the way that you plan as well as the way that you report. So when customers come to the table, they deliver ultimately a solution to their business users that is tailored to the way that they want to not only see the data, but also consume the data in a very logical, very easy way. Customers also give the feedback that Prophix ultimately is a solution that spans industries, but also spans business sizes. As you'll see on this slide here, Prophix is in customers that are ranging from $10 to $20 million a year in revenue companies to 100 employees, all up to your household names, your Fortune 100 businesses. These are truly businesses that exemplify the CPM maturity in that graph that we showed earlier. For many of these businesses, they started off doing budgeting and reporting with their financial statements. Over time, they've ultimately grown to become businesses that are using Prophix for consolidations, for multi-currency, driver-based planning, predictive modeling, all of these things without the looming cost of modules, without the looming cost of subscriptions, but rather they're executing on requirements almost instantaneously when they arrive. So ultimately, the executive team can receive the information they need in a very timely and a very efficient manner. Our demo here today, we're going to go through 6 different areas. And so in these areas, we're going to start off with a story kind of talking about dashboards. So when an end user opens up Prophix on a daily basis, they receive that initial dashboard that they see. Where can they go from there? Where does that visual depiction of data, where do all those numbers ultimately take the user in their analysis? There we'll go into reporting and free-form ad hoc slice and dice analysis. From there, we'll then jump over to the other side of the house, which is forward-looking, budgeting, planning, and forecasting. So we'll really talk about how at the core of planning in Prophix is workflow, similar to the workflows that you would have in your ERP, which dictate the flow of purchase orders or approvals. Prophix also has a very robust workflow solution that helps you manage your budgeting cycle from end to end, so that ultimately you can track on a user-by-user basis, by a template-by-template basis, who's completed their tasks, who's waiting for approval, and ultimately where are we in the grand scheme of our budgeting. But ultimately, driving home more accountability and more control in your planning process. Within the planning process, we'll talk about financial planning relating to P&L and OPEX, but then what we'll also talk about is something called integrated financial planning, which allows you as your business to go deeper beyond your general ledger and plan in the way that your business operates. So whether it's a driver-based model or maybe it's a workforce planning model where you're planning out individual employees, we're going to demonstrate today how Prophix allows you to plan at a detailed level and ultimately see that data instantaneously reflected on your financial statement. Only allowing your executive team and your finance team to see the data in real time and not have to wait until a consolidation at the end of your planning process. We'll then talk about automated report distribution. So you've completed your month end or you've completed your budgeting cycle. How do you get the final report out to your end users? How do you distribute it in an efficient manner without all of the time that it might take to build all of these reports? So we'll talk about that as we go along. As I change my screen here, like I said, we're going to start off in the dashboard. We're going to start off with this is what the user will see every day when they log into Prophix. Ultimately understanding key KPIs, whether it's for their department, what's their head count, what's their division operating cost, what's their profit margin, actual versus plan, really giving them the information that they need instantly instantaneously and very quickly. So first thing when they log in, they can see how that data has changed either from the morning or from yesterday, ultimately giving them the analysis that they need. Now with them in Prophix, you're not only giving them a visual depiction or some quick little KPIs, but you're giving them the ability to go further, to ultimately tell a story behind the data that's presented to them at the onset. So today we're logging into Prophix as the marketing VP. So the marketing VP is in control of 3 divisions or 3 cost centers within the business. So every time I run a report or every time I go into a budget or a template, I only see the information that I have access to. So similarly, when I see this, I see my marketing department, my red square. I see the 3 products that I'm responsible for. I see my top 5 customers that I'm responsible for. Everything tailored to the way that I am supposed to see this information. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean extra work for the people who have to build these. More importantly, you can build reports and templates which then can be accessed by any and every user, but based on their security, they'll all see a different cut. This is something that, at the end of the day, saves an immense amount of time through planning processes and month-end processes, such that Prophix is going to do the work to ultimately deliver the report in the format that the end user should receive it in. When I see this dashboard, I immediately draw my attention to the OpEx expenses dashboard. So OpEx expenses is depicting a variance dashboard or an exceptions dashboard. So when I see red, that likely tells me, well, there's probably some variances that I need to investigate further. Even calling up finance without calling IT, I can investigate down into a deeper level of data. So now we've gone from a visual depiction, a node or a square. Now we're digging into an individual report. So when we get this report, again, I'm only presented with the departments that I have access to. So marketing is the total of those 3 below. So any changes made to the below will automatically update my total marketing. But like I said, at the end of the day, I'm only presented with the data that I have access to, but that doesn't mean extra work for the people who have to build these reports. So I open up this report and I see there's a 57% variance or $26,000 variance on travel costs. I say to myself, well, which one of my 3 departments that I own made up the majority of that? Or was it a little bit of an equal weighting between the 3? Ultimately, again, not having to call finance, not having to call IT to get the answers to my questions, I can do my own self-service analysis. So step 1, in doing analysis in Prophix against the actuals in Macola, I might want to look at this travel costs roll-up, which is the roll-up of multiple accounts. I might want to look at this and say, well, what are all the transactions? Maybe there's 1 or 2 transactions amongst all of my departments and all of the accounts in travel costs. All I have to do is right-click on the data and hit Drill Across. Drill Across will do is it will provide me with a real-time transactional view of all of the data in Macola, ultimately providing me with the deeper level of analysis. Now, this one line of data in Prophix represents $72,000, but in fact there are 317 transactions in Macola making up this one line. So when I get to this point, I'm kind of overwhelmed with all of the transactions. This might take a little bit extra time. I could, dump it into Excel and do some analysis there. However, I could easily just close out of here and dig deeper and slice and dice and drag the data around a little bit to get maybe 1 or 2 accounts and 1 or 2 departments to drill through on again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right-click on the 72,000, and this time, instead of going to Drill Across, I go to Analyze. Analyze is the ability to take a presentation quality report and slice and dice and move all of the data around in any way that you might like to. So, like I said, we might want to get more detail behind the $26,000 variance at an individual account level, so as opposed to at a travel cost level, which is a roll-up. We might get down to the individual account. So all can easily do that, just right-click and hit Expand. It's given me the 5 accounts that roll up to travel costs. So these roll-ups are maintained centrally within the hierarchy in Prophix. What that means is every time you build a report or every time you build a template, you do not have to go and rebuild your tree. You don't have to rebuild your roll-ups. There's no sum formulas, none of that. Ultimately, we're centralizing and making the process of reporting and drilling down and drilling up completely automated. This is what allows me to go from my travel cost section up to all my operating expenses and go all the way back down to my lowest level without having to pre-build anything. This is the beauty of using the hierarchies in Prophix. So like I said, now we're at the account level. We see that there's airfare, lodging, so on and so forth, but there's clearly one that stands out. There's one account that tells me there's a big variance in there. So what I could do again is I could right-click on the $39,000 in actuals and give me a drill across. However, what I'd still like to find out is which of the three departments that rolls up to marketing made up the majority of that, or is it even? So all I simply have to do with a click of my mouse is click and drag the departments or the cost centers on top of the account that I want more detail on, and instantly it gives me that information. It gives me that real-time analysis. So we're at the lowest level of our accounts, but we're also at the lowest level of our departments or cost centers. Our query when it comes to drilling into the drill across is going to be much smaller. So ultimately, if I want to drill into product marketing because it's making up $17,000 of the variance, I easily do that. Drilling into this now, I'm only getting 23 transactions because we're deeper in the hierarchy. So now when I see this, I see $15,000 in one transaction. So I say to myself, wow, that's a big transaction. Did we budget for that? So what I can do is I can click on the invoice that's actually attached to that $15,000 transaction, and it will give me the imaged invoice that's attached to that. Ultimately, going right down to the very lowest level, right down to the piece of paper that generated that $15,000 transaction. I know exactly who it was for, when it was booked, what the invoice number is, all of that information given to me as the VP of Marketing in my analysis without having to strain finance or IT or operations to give me this information. At the end of the day, if I'm accountable for it, I ultimately be able to do the analysis for it. So there's a $15,000 variance here. And in this in particular account, which we'll get into in a little bit, the type of account needed to be budgeted at a line item detail level. So airfare is a common expense that our clients will require line by line or trip by trip type planning for. So at the end of the day, what I might want to do is go and look to see, did we actually budget for that $15,000 transaction, or was that unbudgeted? Was that an outside of the box type of transaction? Well, quite clearly, there was not a $15,000 variance or $15,000 line item or trip. What I'm going to do is then go back to the variance amount, add a comment, and say $15,000 non-budgeted item. That commentary, similarly to this line item detail or this line item budget, is stored within Prophix. Unlike in Excel, where commentaries and line items are specific to templates and specific to tabs, all this information is stored in what we call the metadata within Prophix. So we'll loop over to our budgeting in a second. You'll see how 8450 was originally created in the original budgeting template, but did not require us to actually go find it and bring it over into our analysis. Ultimately, not only as a time saver, keeps all of the detail, keeps all of the accountability within your business together when people are putting additional detail like a comment or a transactional line item budget. So I'll go into something in the budgeting realm, in the planning realm here for a second, and I'm going to go back to my home screen here. So on my home screen, I have a couple of different things. We originally logged in, we got the dashboard, but I can also go back to a tile-based home screen as well. On the tile-based home screen, I'm prompted at the very top of here with a list of tasks Tasks are assigned to me as the VP of Marketing and ultimately are required for me to complete. So they could be anything from a department OPEX task or a personnel planning task or a CAPEX plan task, whatever it might be, but ultimately all of these are assigned to me, and once I've completed them, they will enter into the next stage of the approval. Core of these tasks is Prophix Workflow Manager. The Workflow Manager is something that the finance team can ultimately use to manage their entire budgeting and planning and even their month-end cycles, because at the end of the day, whether it's planning or whether it's month-end, there are tasks involved and there are people who get assigned to them. Workflow ultimately allows you to build out your planning or build out your month-end process and on an on-demand basis in real time understand the progress of your budget end to end. So you can see each individual task. So here's the two tasks that I am accountable for, marketing and sales. I can see when they're due. I see where they are at in the stage, if they're in progress or if they've been submitted or if they're waiting for approval. Ultimately providing that a level of detail and analysis such that when you have a planning cycle update meeting, you have that information at your fingertips. But so if you needed to at any given time either change the version that you're planning on or change the template that your users are using, it's all controlled centrally within the workflow. Means is decreased confusion on what version are we planning on or what template should I be using. Those are common things that people experience when they're using Excel and using email to distribute things out. But ultimately, you can control all of that centrally within here. You add your layers of approval, so if you need to have certain people approving or certain people owning the task, but else is the actual approver of that task, you put that level of detail in there and ultimately drive the accountability and drive the ownership of the budget that your organization wishes. Back to my home screen there, and I'm going to begin to fill out my tasks, and I'm going to begin to complete the portions of the plan that I have assigned to me. So these tasks are emailed to the end users. They're notified. They're reminded on a daily basis or a weekly basis, how often as you wish. But at the end of the day, the one constant, whether we've changed the plan that they're planning on or we've changed the template, the one constant is the task. So at the end of the day, the user in the interface is very consistent and very simple. So I'm going to click on my department OPEX task, and I'm going to begin to fill out different portions of my task and different portions of my plan. So again, when I open this up, I'm prompted with 3 departments that I have ownership over and I have to complete the budget for, just like when we did our variance analysis, the same list is prompted to me. I can plan in different currencies as well. So if you have different sites and certain sites are in different currencies, you have the ability to plan in those local currencies, and Prophix in real time will continually consolidate and convert to all the different functional currencies that you have. So you can plan in local currencies, but you could also plan in functional currencies as well. So what I'm going to walk you through is a couple of different examples or different approaches to OPEX planning, but the same, I want you to keep in mind that the same approach can be applied to sales planning, where you're planning for customers and products, production planning, where you might be planning for sites and lines. Ultimately, all of these things that I'm going to show you in a second are ultimately applicable to any data that you might be using to plan on. I'm going to start off with our travel cost section here, because this is a section we talked about before when we were talking about our OPEX planning. In this case, what I'm going to look at is, let's say we have our original budget, so we have 2015 annualized budget, and we want to make a couple of changes to it. So change, we might want to look at the forecast. So we have 9+3 forecast. And so that 9+3 would be 9 months of actuals plus 3 months of budget or 3 months of forecast, ultimately giving you a trend and giving you a forecast through the end of the year, because most companies will begin their budget before the end of the fiscal year. Right here and there, we see $74,000. That tells me that, maybe my $270,000 is a little bit over. So what I'll do is I'll plan $80,000. Plan $80,000 at an annual level or any level above the month. So you can do your planning at a daily level, a weekly level, a monthly level, but at the second you go to the quarter, or the second you go to the year or half year, prompts you to spread that data down to the months or down to the weeks. Mechanisms or allocation mechanisms are completely out of the box within Prophix. Allow you to allocate, these allow you to spread without having to build any kind of formulas or technical things in order to prompt the user to be able to do this. In Excel world, that means formatting cells, formatting formulas in order to allow users to do this. This is providing users with the flexibility to either plan by day, by week, by month, or plan by quarter or by year without the upkeep and without the building of those types of things in. So right here, we're prompted with 4 options to spread down to the months. So we have option 1, which is spread evenly, so divided by the number of periods that we're planning for, whether it's 2 or 12 or 18. We're spread by existing data. A lot of businesses will start with a baseline, and then their users will allocate their New Year's budget based on that baseline, so based on a weighted average. Prophix will look at each of the months and allocate the weighted average. Or we can spread it based on a predetermined factor. So finance team or the IT team wants to allocate certain weightings to certain months or certain quarters based on seasonality. You put that in there too. But the fourth option, and really what's the most compelling option, the most powerful option with Prophix, is to allow your users to spread based on other data within the system. So for example, a marketing team may want to align their travel spend or their campaign spend to line up with the sales team. Or the marketing team may want to allocate OpEx expenses based on the number of heads they have in their business, or the head count. So I may want to spread it based on headcount, in which case all I have to do is go to my accounts, simply my statistical accounts, or I can go to any of the hierarchies within my general ledger or the way that I roll up my customers or products. But ultimately, it's giving me very visual depictions, very simple to understand. But in this case, I'm going to choose a statistical account. So we could choose from FTE, footage, units produced, utilization, all of these things, because they're stored within your Macola database, and that's into Prophix, allow you to use them for allocation and also spreading data. So in this case, I'm going to choose FTE, so full-time equivalents within my team, because I'm planning out some G&A. That's okay. What Prophix is going to do now, because we're spreading it based on another piece of data within Prophix, it's going to go in, allocate the cost, so $80,000, based on the weighted average of that FTE. So if I click OK, to go in here, and it's going to look up here, in fact, because here's our FTEs, and it's going to allocate it accordingly. So the 2 8s should have the same amount, the 9s also the same amount. So ultimately providing you with the ability to provide more granular reason for why your data is spread the way it's spread, without the upkeep and without the building of these types of things into your templates. So now that I've done that, I can add a piece of commentary that says spread based on FTE. I can attach a file to it as well. There may be a supporting file that I have used for this spread, and I want to use it in there. Comment when it comes time to doing the variance analysis, like we went through earlier. That piece of commentary will be there. We don't have to come back and find it after the fact. The thing we talked about in the variance analysis was the idea of doing a line item budget. So here's an example of, we will have our users provide line item detail or additional justification to the items that they're budgeting for. So in this case, when you see a blue triangle, that means that there's additional detail, there's line item information below. When I right-click on this, it ultimately brings me to my line item details, and it will provide me with all of the detailed information behind my budget. So I can add additional lines in, and I can say exact Evolve conference, because we're going to be there this year. And I say, this is going to be $5,000 in June. I provide that level of detail. My approver, when they come in, they see this detail, they see all of the justification, and ultimately they can approve or reject it as they see fit. But at the end of the day, like we said, when it comes to doing your variance analysis against your transactions, you have something to compare it to. So save here, save my line item details, and in the month of June, we'll now have $8,000. So we added an additional 5, there's our $8,000. So a level of detail that can be provided to allow users to put additional justification, but ultimately make a more granular budget when you're planning out your financial statements, but also planning out other areas of your business as well, whether it be sales or production or operations. Switch gears for a second here, and I'm going to move a little bit over to something called top-down planning. So I'm going to stay within the exact same template here. But only what I'm going to do is I'm switching over to my roll-up, my total marketing budget. The reason I'm going to do that is for one reason and one reason only, such that for all of my departments, I'm going to allocate their shared services, so their information technology or sometimes their admin. I'm going to allocate their costs based on the number of heads that I have in my department. So as opposed to going through all of the individual departments and filling out their IT budget, I could simply just say for the entire year, I'm going to allocate $1 million in IT. I'm going to spread it based on the time. So for all the entire year, I'm going to spread it based on FTEs in each of my departments. So again, I can go back and I can choose the FTE driver, because I have an FTE effectively in every single department, and I can click OK. Ultimately, what that's doing now is for each of my 3 departments that I've just allocated IT costs to, it's going to look at that FTE. So in this case, we have 8 in product marketing, so they have just over $12,000. If I go to content marketing, which has a little bit more, they have more FTEs in their group. They have 9. Therefore, they have 14,000. So what it's done is it's allocated, it's created that weighted average for each of the FTEs within each of the 3 departments that I have responsibility over. So really at the end of the day, saving myself a lot of time in doing my planning. So I'm going to go back to this $500,000. I'll add in a comment and say spread based on FTE. And then when I come back to this, or my approver comes back to this, they'll know why there's $500,000 and why it's spread that way. So this is another example of how customers will plan out certain portions of their budget at a higher level than the lowest level of their general ledger, or the lowest level of the way they roll up their customers or their vendors or their products. The area that we talked about in the agenda was the concept of integrated financial planning. So integrated financial planning is the ability to plan all components of your P&L or your balance sheet or your statement of cash flows, to put all of these different elements and to ultimately have one single cohesive plan for the entire organization. What I'm going to go through here is the idea of planning out my payroll costs at an employee level. So we've integrated Prophix to the HRIS system, pull out all of the employees, and then generate a plan that matches the exact same calculations that the payroll system is generating. So in this level here, I'm not going to plan out my payroll costs at a monthly by general ledger level. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my home screen and open up a subsequent task, which is a separate task and separate template, to plan out that portion of my department, of my personnel, of my employee plan. So what this is going to open up, it's going to open up a separate planning model called Detailed Planning Manager. It's something within Prophix that's very popular because it allows you to plan based on various attributes or various drivers. So, for example, as it relates to payroll, payroll allows you to plan based on the position or based on what state that they live in or whether they match 401k or if they contribute to a plan. So if they have, health, dental, and vision, what are those different, plans that they subscribe to? These are all different attributes that then dictate different variable costs. So the same approach or the same notion can be applied to CapEx, where you have different assets and different asset classes. So we'll integrate and we'll pull out your assets and we'll build out all the different, depreciation types, whether it's, fixed, whether it's a furniture or whether it's IT or capital expenditures relating to IT. You may have all these different classes and therefore different types of depreciation schedules. So this planning manager, as you can see, is very popular because there's a lot of different elements to different types of planning that are resulting with different types of attributes. So the attributes we have here will then dictate different variable costs over here. So change this person's state to New York, that person's there as well. And I calculate, it's going to change their different payroll taxes. So all of these things are calculated using the exact same types of calculations that your payroll system is generating, therefore giving you a down to the penny payroll budget that's exactly how you want it to be budgeted. But all this information is at a much more detailed level. We need to ultimately get that back to our P&L, get that back to our integrated financial plan so that we can then see what the trickle-down effect is to our balance sheet, what the trickle-down effect is to our statement of cash flows, but ultimately giving ourselves a full picture of adding one head or adding two heads or, allocating somebody to another department. We need to see what that information is going to do for our business. So all I simply have to do is click Update. What it's going to do is it's going to send this detailed plan in the Detailed Planning Manager over to financial statements. And because Prophix knows which elements go to which general ledger accounts and which departments and which currencies and all those different types of things, because it's unified, you can simply just hit refresh. And all of that data and all that information is now pushed back to our financial statements. We understand now what that means to our bottom line on the P&L. We understand now what that means to our balance sheet and our statement of cash flows, all giving you an end-to-end picture of your entire business from a detailed level all the way up to your bottom line. Today, once I've completed my budget, I would simply just go to my actions and submit my budget for approval. Say, submitted draft 1. And in line, who is in charge of that department or in line for the workflow, will ultimately receive an email that says, you're in line, you're next, you have to come into Prophix to fill it out. So we just got that email, so now that I'm the next user in line, I would then go into that task, review it, make changes, reject it or approve it, and then it would go on to the next stage. Ultimately all managed by the workflow and ultimately providing you that level of accountability and structure for your planning process. Like I said, at the end of the day, where we need to lead all of this towards is more accountability, more control, but with the ease of use without adding barriers for end users to do their own analysis. So just like when we went from our dashboard down to our report and to our ad hoc, all with the click of our mouse did we get to that level of detail. The same thing when we're doing our planning, providing users with the ability to plan in a familiar format. So if you're planning in Excel right now, Prophix formatting is mirroring the exact same ribbon of formatting that you have in your Excel template. So there's a lot of familiarity for your end users. There won't be a large learning curve. But like I said, providing them with the ability to provide better value and provide better analysis when planning their business. The topic that we wanted to go through was, what if at the end of your budgeting cycle, you need to now, or the end of your month cycle, you need to now update everything. So you added a new account to your underlying general ledger, or you recategorize the way that you roll up your business. So all you simply would have to do to execute and to update all of your reports in Prophix is launch a simple task. Once the automate task, what Prophix is going to do is it's going to run a process that ultimately updates all of your structures. So your account structures, your division structures, your cost centers, your product structures, your customer structures, everything. Ultimately, the next time that you open any report or distribute any report in Prophix, those new structures will automatically be updated. So the last account that we planned for in payroll was 401k, but now we've added something to our general ledger, and we have a new account called miscellaneous payroll. Now, because Prophix is all based on hierarchies and based on structure, we don't have to add a row. We don't have to update any kind of sum formula because everything's just based on the roll-up structure that you dictated for the solution. Have multiple roll-up structures, you can have that as well, but ultimately reducing the time that it takes to maintain your reports, and therefore, at the end of the day, when it comes time to ramping up for budget season or closing the books each month, by hitting those automate processes, Prophix will go through and update all of your necessary reports. And then, at the end of the day, you can put together your packages of reports for your exec team or for your division managers. And at the end of the day, get those out to them in a quicker way, get them analyzing them, putting more time for your finance team to spend time with the business leaders to analyze the data, to understand what changes in the original plan, how those will affect future months to come. But those reports can get delivered to your end users quicker. So what I've opened up here is something called report binders. And so binders are the combination of multiple reports within Prophix, but also outside Prophix as well. So if you have some reports that you're still going to generate in Macola, but you'd like to bring those into Prophix, or you might have another system that generates some reports as well, but you'd like to bring those into your packages within Prophix, you can do that as well. So right here, we have a couple of narrative cover pages. Then we also have 5 reports, which are coming from various different models within Prophix. So we have our cash flows, we have our balance sheet and income statements, but then we also have a dashboard which depicts our P&L by line of business. Distribute these reports out to multiple users, and because every user has their own security profile, they'll all get a different slice and dice of the data, and that reduces the time that you have to spend in order to deliver those packages to your end users. So a common feedback we get from clients is the main thing that takes them a long time in month end is simply setting up reports for all the different recipients. Like I said, because every user has their own security in Prophix, Prophix will take care of slicing and dicing the data, suppressing blank pages, and ultimately delivering those reports to the end users in their inbox, on their mobile device, in their browser, whatever it might be. If we just double-click on the PDF here, we open it up and prompt it with a monthly reporting package without the finance or IT team having to create the individual package for me, but rather I will receive the narrative that's specific to me. I will receive the income statements as the dashboard. So if I go down to the dashboard here, receive everything that's specific to me as a business leader. So at the end of the day, I can then react and say, okay, well, why was the revenue for the engineering department, or in my case, why was the revenue from marketing and sales lower than the original plan? So then I can easily just react to that, then go into Prophix and my P&L I have access to, open up the information and begin to do my analysis and begin to do the data discovery that we did from the very beginning in our dashboard. I'm going to turn it over to the algorithm team for a quick Q&A. Jeff, you'll have that in the chat window, I believe, so I will over to that team, and we can begin our Q&A session for the last 10 minutes or so here.
Terrific, Chris. I appreciate the presentation. I did post during the presentation to all participants in the chat window that if you wanted to submit a question during the presentation, you could do so there in the chat or Q&A windows. And lo and behold, I didn't get any questions, but I saw something, Chris, that I want to ask about. We're unmuting the phone, so I want to go ahead and select to unmute the phone. So give me just a second here. And okay, unmute now. And I did. A question just came across. Chris, how do sales planning interact with materials and material planning?
That's a very good question. So while we didn't go through it, we do have a model in Prophix that allows you to integrate both your production and material planning with the sales planning. And I can actually just quickly jump into that real quick. And really ultimately allows you to do is to plan out our production planning. So just going to open it up here. Ultimately, plan out your production planning, whereby based on the number of materials that your team has, so based on expected demand, for example, that the sales team is planning out, and based on materials and production, you could ultimately see, do we have deficits? Are we running behind? All those different types of elements. So we can make those connections between what your sales team is planning and what your buyers or your material planning teams are planning to understand, can we meet those requirements? And so we get the link between what's in the inventory and what's in the materials, what's in the supply chain, between what the sales team is planning out. So yeah, very good question, and we could definitely dig deeper on that after the fact.
And then we've got a different question. Can this interface display to Internet users?
Yeah, very good question, and absolutely it can. So your end users can access it through a URL generated for your business and your business only, whereby when they log in and they type in that URL for your business that opens up in the browser, they'll be prompted with their username and password, therefore allowing your users to access Prophix really from anywhere in the globe without having to set up VPNs or remote desktops.
Just to extend that question then, are separate, for lack of a better word, for different types of remote devices, thinking in terms of smartphones versus iPads versus laptops?
Well, the question is very poignant because with the Prophix browser, you can access it on any browser. So whether you're using iOS or Android or Windows Phone, all you simply have to have is a browser. And so you're not reliant on app numbers, so you're not reliant on your end users to update to the latest app, but rather when Prophix, the application itself, updates, browser updates as well. So therefore eliminating the need to make sure users are on the latest version, but rather when Prophix provides an update, it ultimately provides the update for the desktop version that we're on right here, but also the browser version as well. So we go the browser route because it allows you to not have to deal with managing different versions of apps, but rather just simply managing the fact that they have a browser.
Okay, perfect. And then I just got another question come in. If your business has a large need for variable labor due to seasonality in sales, how can labor be predicted to match sales and product mix? I'm not hearing you. Did you hear me?
No, we're good. Okay. Question about how can we properly align labor planning with sales planning so as to not over exceed our labor and perhaps there isn't a high production requirement. So that's kind of really where the planning that we went through earlier, whereby, when you are planning out your employees or you're planning out your labor, that you have those drivers to ultimately allow you to plan out based on things like FTE, but also plan out elements of your P&L. So, for example, plan sales. When we were planning out the item here, just as an example, I'm just going to go back and just reject this, and I'll make a couple of quick changes here. When we were planning out our element here, which our labor, when we plan these things out and it ultimately allows us to spread, we can say then when we do our payroll planning, we can spread it based on not just the FTE, but we can also spread it based on sales. So that way when we're doing that initial cut of the plan and we say, okay, I'd like to spread it based on revenue, when we do our initial cut, this way, when I do it, we can see is there a big variance, or is there too much labor? Are we not matching, what we're planning for production or what we're planning for sales? That way, when we do it, we use that as our driver. When the next person in line reviews it, they may see that there is a discrepancy between sales planning and our workforce planning. Therefore, then you can go back and make that adjustment to ultimately align the two a little bit better. So this is where the spreading and the allocations can really come in handy in order to make sure you're aligning costs with things like revenue.
Okay, and actually, my question that I was going to mention to you earlier kind of piggybacks because it's that same employee planning schedule that you displayed earlier. There was a good bit of data. For instance, I noticed that there was 401k matching percentage and some other data points there. And I was wondering, was that data pulled directly from Prophix table, or did that data come from a Macola employee table, or where was that data coming from, or did it all have to be entered manually in order to do the analysis that you were doing?
Great question. So Prophix can pull all payroll information either directly from Macola if you are storing it in there, or in other HRIS systems like ADP or Ceridian. Prophix pulls that data. We do have a little over 200 integrations built out to date. So we can pull that information directly in, and because all of those calculations have been built in Prophix, we have a salaries calculation, we have a taxes, a benefits, a cost allocation for executives. We have those types of those calculations pre-built. All you simply have to do is really just choose how you calculate 401k, at what percentage, what your benefit rates are for your different providers, for your different plans. So we pull in those initial attributes, which would be these things here. We pull those in from your source system, and then all of the calculations, you simply just configure them to match the way that your company calculates these different types of things. So they're an auto upload, they're an auto load straight from the source database. They don't have to be manually entered.
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions. Obviously, we're going through questions pretty quickly, so if you have questions, either feel free to speak up and ask your question yourself, or if you'd like to type it into either the chat or Windows in WebEx, we'd be happy to ask the question for you. And while we're waiting for another question, I do want to mention to everybody, we have been recording today's webinar, and so again, when we complete the webinar, we'll stop the recording. It takes a little bit of time to get it converted out of WebEx for a posting, but once we do that, then we're going to be posting a link to it on our website as well as on our YouTube page. And then also, of course, you can request a link from either your algorithm account manager, or if you're unsure who your algorithm account manager is, I will give you our email address, and it's great. Chris has the slide up in front of us right now. sales team at algorithminc.com is the general email address for requesting additional information. Also, our phone number is displayed there, 888-522-8588. Obviously, Algorithm is a partner with Prophix. Algorithm is happy to work with you to answer questions or obviously arrange for or coordinate another meeting or a further demonstration for your specific organization with the appropriate resources from Prophix. So we are working in tandem here. We want to express to all of you as listeners and viewers of this webinar, but also anyone who would come later to view this recording, that Prophix and Algorithm really are trying to provide a solution set that extends what Exact Macola does for you, and we are going to work in concert, not unlike the way that Algorithm and Exact Macola work in concert to try to provide our customers the best solutions and the most timely resources for your needs. Again, if anybody has any questions that you'd like to ask before we wrap things up, please do so now. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I will mention to you that we will be following up with the attendees here that have registered and attended this webinar. If you would like to, again, accelerate that process, please feel free to reach out to salesteam@algorithminc.com, and we'll prioritize contacting you, or if there is a particular day and time that's appropriate for us to follow up with you, please let us know, and we'll follow up with you to meet those calendar requirements as you desire. It doesn't look like we've got any other questions here, Chris. Are there any bullet points or top things that you're thinking you might want to mention here as we wrap up?
Off the top of my mind, like I said, follow up with the Algorithm team, but they'll be able to coordinate, like you said, Jeff, a follow-up demo. Prophix is a completely configured solution. It's not a technical, customized, coding-based solution. This allows us to implement and get your time to go live in a very efficient manner, coupled with the expertise that Algorithm provides. So this is a solution that we're talking weeks to implement. We're not talking months. We're not talking even years with some solutions in this marketplace. Leveraging the expertise that Algorithm brings to the table, going through those first couple areas of reporting and budgeting, we can really get you to a go-live state in a very quick amount of time. So if this is something you're thinking about for potentially the second half of your year, it's still a very realistic goal to have something in place by that time. So I encourage you to reach out to your Algorithm rep, and then we can kind of take it from there and begin to do some configuration to meet your business needs.
That's a great point, Chris. I'm glad you mentioned about implementation time frame and also recognizing that it's not something that we have to necessarily plan years of implementation, scheduling, and work on a project. It is something that could be implemented yet in 2016. And so if that is something that you'd like to discuss, please, by all means, contact us here at salesteam@algorithminc.com. Again, I don't see any other questions, so I don't want to take up more time than we need to today. Again, we appreciate everyone taking the time to attend our webinar this afternoon. If you would like more information, please don't hesitate to contact us. The webinar recording will be posted and available probably within the next day or so. And again, if you would like to have us send a link to the recording to you, please don't hesitate to ask. Chris, thank you very much for the information and the time out of your day for our presentation. It was very informative, and we look forward to doing it again sometime in the near future. I know that we'll be at Evolve. Chris mentioned Evolve. Prophix and Chris Porter and Prophix will be attending the Exact Macola Evolve event in Atlanta in April, and we encourage all of you to consider attending if you have not already registered for that event. Again, from Algorithm, we appreciate you taking the time. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks again for everybody.